The birthday wish that changed everything. It was Rebecca's 45th birthday. I arrived early, holding a $200 chocolate strawberry cake from her favorite bakery, the same flavor she used to beg for when she was 8. I could almost see her little face lighting up again, frosting on her cheeks, shouting, "Mom, you're the best." But when the door opened, that little girl was gone. Rebecca stood there, arms crossed, her expression stiff and annoyed. "Oh, it's you," she muttered, not even looking me in the eye. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said softly, forcing a smile. "I brought your favorite, just like when you were a kid." She sighed, long and loud, as if my presence alone was exhausting. "Mom, we need to talk," she said flatly, stepping aside to let me in. We sat in the living room of her beautiful suburban home, the one I had paid the down payment for. $150 straight from my retirement savings. Every inch of that house carried my fingerprints, the wedding I financed, the furniture I helped choose, the twins' toys I had bought. "Rebecca, honey," I started gently, "what's this about?" She leaned back on the couch, cold and composed. "I've been thinking a lot about my birthday," she said, pausing deliberately, "about gifts, about what would really make me happy this year." I smiled, eager to please. "Of course, baby, whatever you want. A trip? Jewelry? Maybe that new car you mentioned?" Then she looked me dead in the eye, and what I saw there froze me. It wasn't indifference. It was contempt. "The only thing I really want," she said slowly, savoring each word, "is for you to just die." For a second, the world stopped. The clock on the wall seemed to go silent. Even the air refused to move. I thought I had misheard her. What did you just say?" I whispered. "You heard me," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut through bone. "I'm tired of you, Mom. The calls, the surprise visits, the constant need for attention. My life would be so much easier if you'd just disappear." My hands trembled. 72 years of living. 45 years of being her mother, and those were the words I got in return. "Rebecca," I stammered, tears blurring my vision, "I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything." "Exactly," she snapped, standing up. "That's the problem. You've given too much. You're suffocating me. I can't breathe with you hovering over my life. I need freedom. I need you to let me live." The cake was still in my hands. The candles had started to melt, wax running down like the tears on my face. All the plans I had, hugs, laughter, dinner with the family, gone, evaporated in a single cruel sentence. "But, sweetheart," I tried one more time, voice shaking, "I just want to be close to you. You're all I have." She folded her arms. "That's exactly the problem, Mom. I'm all you have. Go get a life of your own, and leave me out of it." I stood there, legs trembling, heart cracking with every word she said. How had I raised someone capable of this? How had I turned love into something she resented? I turned toward the door, clutching the cake like a relic of a life that no longer existed. "I can't believe you're saying this to me," I whispered. "Believe it," she said, her tone icy. "You did this to yourself." I looked around the house one last time, the marble countertops, the framed photos, the designer curtains, all built from the paychecks of 40 years of double shifts as a nurse. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every penny, had led to this moment. "Happy birthday, Rebecca," I said quietly, and walked out. Outside, the air was sharp, almost cleansing. I got into my old car, the one that rattled when it started, and drove back to my small apartment, the only space in the world that was truly mine. I set the untouched cake on the counter. The wax had hardened again, twisting like scars. For a long time, I just stood there, and then, without even realizing it, I started to laugh, a bitter, broken laugh that turned into something else entirely. A decision. If my daughter wanted me gone, Then maybe it was time to give her exactly what she asked for. Not through death. Through disappearance. That night, for the first time in decades, I didn't cry myself to sleep. I sat in the dark, surrounded by receipts, bank statements, and photo albums, physical proof of a lifetime's worth of sacrifice. And as dawn crept through the blinds, something inside me shifted. The sadness didn't fade. It transformed into clarity, into resolve, into something sharp and unbreakable. Rebecca wanted me to disappear? Fine. But when I did, she would finally learn what life without me truly costs. The numbers of a lifetime of sacrifice. That night, my apartment felt quieter than ever. Not the kind of silence that soothes you, the kind that exposes everything you've been trying not to see. I turned on the small lamp by my old couch and pulled out the dusty shoebox from the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside it were decades of proof, bank statements, receipts, hospital bills, tuition slips, mortgage copies, photos, and handwritten notes that once made me proud. Now, they just looked like evidence. Evidence of how completely I had erased myself in the name of love. I spread them across the table like crime scene photos. If motherhood was my life's greatest devotion, this was the autopsy. There it was, the hospital bill from when Rebecca was 3 and caught pneumonia. $1,200 for antibiotics not covered by insurance. I sold my mother's jewelry to pay for it. Then the pink prom dress. $800. I worked every weekend for 4 months to afford it. The way her eyes sparkled when she twirled in front of the mirror. That was my paycheck. Her college tuition. $42. 3 majors. 3 times changing her mind. I never complained. I took a second mortgage instead. Her wedding. $35. The elegant ballroom. The flowers. The white dress she said made her feel like a princess. The house down payment. $150. 40 years of double shifts condensed into one wire transfer. 8 months of mortgage payments when David lost his job. $16. Braces for the twins. $4. Birthday and Christmas gifts over the years. Easily another $10. I started adding everything together. Pen trembling in my hand. $200 to raise her. $42 for college. $35 for the wedding. $150 for the house. $16 for the mortgage. $4 for braces. $10 for gifts. More than $460. Almost $500,000. $500,000 that I turned into love. Into comfort. Into her stability. All gone with a single sentence. I wish you were dead. My breath caught. I leaned back, staring at the mountain of paper that now felt like a tombstone. If I had invested that money instead, I'd have over $600 today, maybe more. I could be living in a nice condo, traveling through Europe, eating fresh pastries every morning instead of counting pennies at the grocery store. But I didn't. Because I believed love was supposed to cost everything. I used to tell myself, it's worth it. Every sacrifice, every extra shift, every tear, because she'll love me back. That night, I realized how foolish that mantra really was. I hadn't raised a grateful daughter. I'd raised a woman who saw unconditional love as unlimited credit. I picked up my phone and stared at her name. Rebecca Red Heart. It used to be my favorite word in the world. Now it looked like a scar. Still, I pressed call. 5 rings later, she answered, irritated. What now, Mom? Rebecca, I said softly, I need to know if you meant what you said earlier today. There was a pause, brief, cold, and sharp. Of course I meant it. She said, Mom, it's time for you to understand that your obsession with me isn't healthy. I need space. Obsession. That's what she called my love. Obsession? I whispered, my throat tightening. You call it obsession when a mother loves her only child? Yes, she replied, and I hope that after today, you finally get it. I hung up before she could say anything else. For a while, I just sat there, phone in my lap, staring into nothing. It was over, not in the dramatic, movie kind of way, but in the quiet way that endings usually arrive, sudden, ugly, undeniable. I couldn't sleep. I lay there until 3 a.m., eyes fixed on the ceiling, replaying every moment of her life, the feverish nights, the school plays, the wedding vows, the grandchildren's laughter. Were all those memories built on a lie? Or had I simply built them on a daughter who stopped seeing me as human the moment she became an adult? Something inside me hardened. The sadness, the humiliation, the endless ache, it all began to twist into something else. Not hatred. Not revenge. Something purer, sharper. Clarity. I got up, washed my face, and looked in the mirror. The woman staring back wasn't the same one who had left Rebecca's house hours earlier. The tears had dried, but her eyes were alive again. If Rebecca wanted me gone, I would give her what she wanted. But not the way she expected. She wanted me dead? Fine. I would disappear, not into the ground, but into freedom. Not into death, but into the life I'd been denying myself for 72 years. That was the moment I decided. No more begging to be loved. No more financing my own erasure. No more being the safety net for someone who never cared if I fell. When the morning light touched my window, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades, peace. I poured a cup of coffee, sat down with a notebook, and began to write the first line of my new life. If love was the reason I lost myself, then self-respect will be the reason I find myself again. I closed the notebook, took a deep breath, and whispered to the empty room. It's time. That day, I got dressed, put on my best clothes, and headed to the first place on my list, the bank. Rebecca had no idea that her birthday wish was about to come true in the most unexpected way imaginable. The bank. How I turned her wish into my freedom. The bank smelled like polished wood and new money. It was the same smell I'd grown to hate and love in equal parts over the years. A perfume for transactions that had kept my family's house warm and my daughter's life comfortable. I walked in that morning not as a supplicant, but as someone with the quiet authority of someone who had finally done her accounting. Good morning, Mrs. Johnson. Mr. Martinez, the branch manager, smiled like he'd known me forever. He'd seen me deposit tiny paychecks in. Later, wiring funds in larger sums. He slid a visitor's badge across the desk as if to say, "You're still one of ours." Today, I wore my composure like armor. "I need to close our joint account," I said, plain and steady. He blinked, then pulled up the ledger. "This account has a balance," he said. "Are you sure?" The question was practical, it was not moral. That was what I liked about banks. They ask about numbers much more politely than people ask about feelings. Yes. I signed the forms carefully. When the teller handed me the cashier's check, I felt a small, private warmth. My name on the line felt like reclaiming territory. Money that had flowed out of my life to prop up theirs was now being given back to me, lawfully. Quietly, irreversibly. From the bank I went to the mortgage office. I wasn't naive about responsibility. I knew co-signer rights were complicated. And I had no intention of abusing them. What I wanted, and what I had a right to explore with counsel, was the truth. Had my support become a safety net for a life built on entitlement? Had my kindness become an unpaid bill I was expected to renew forever? Ms. Williams, the loan officer, was professional and efficient. She pulled the file and set it on the desk between us. The numbers there were not mean or cruel, they were simply factual. Months missed, employment gaps, the spells of unemployment Rebecca and David had navigated with my help. "Mrs. Johnson," she said, tapping the folder, "you covered 8 months of payments last year. That's documented. I nodded. I did not need to explain the humiliation of writing that check. How I'd traded a few quiet dinners and small comforts to keep a roof over their heads. But I did need someone to acknowledge the pattern. Ms. Williams did that by asking the right question. Do you want options? We can review your rights as a co-signer. Options. That was the word that turned the whole afternoon from grief into strategy. I called Anel, my lawyer. A man whose calm voice had guided me through smaller storms for years. When he picked up, I told him the bare facts. He didn't gasp. He didn't plead. He listed possibilities. We'll do this by the book. He said, we'll document everything. You're acting out of preservation, not vengeance. That last line mattered to me. There is a difference between fury and clarity. Vengeance tastes hot but burns the giver. Preservation cools into dignity. With Anel's counsel, I began methodically. We changed account beneficiaries. We updated my will. We confirmed the life insurance beneficiary changes. We assembled documentation proving the financial support I had provided. Cancelled checks. Wire confirmations. Receipts. It was not a hunt for payback, it was a ledger of truth. At one point, David called my cell, voice shaking with that awful mixture of pleading and calculation that had become their default when things threatened to cost them. Julietta, please, don't do anything rash, he begged. I listened politely, then I thought of the nights I'd sat up worrying about their future. The afternoons I'd gone without to buy them a holiday meal. David, I said, very softly, this isn't about being rash. This is about being real. That phrase, being real, felt like a small revolution. The legal work took time. But not as much as you'd think. The truth makes processes smoother than lies ever do. Banks and courts are not theaters of morality, they are systems of proof. I had proof. I had the receipts, the mortgage ledger, the emails confirming promises made and kept by me alone. I had recordings of conversations with my lawyer where every decision was deliberate and lucid. When Rebecca later tried to claim I wasn't of sound mind, that claim would collide with the simple, bright wall of evidence I was building. Between appointments I did small, delicious things for myself. I withdrew a modest amount of cash, not as an act of drama but of practicality, and placed it in an envelope stamped with my name. I booked a consultation with a travel advisor who specialized in long-term stays for retirees. I walked into a boutique and bought a silk scarf that made me look like someone the world should listen to. These were not purchases of spite, they were stitches in the new life I was assembling. The real satisfaction, the kind that doesn't bounce off the cheap thrill of seeing someone hurt, came from the calm work of setting boundaries. I changed the beneficiary on my life insurance. I set up a trust for the grandchildren that would protect them without letting Rebecca access the funds. I crafted the trust to be thoughtful and fair. Their well-being would be secured without allowing their parents to use my generosity as leverage. When the documents were signed, something interesting happened. I didn't feel triumphant in the way strangers imagine revenge. I felt light. The scale that had balanced my life against their needs tipped back toward equilibrium. For the first time in years, I was not holding the weight of their choices. I'd always imagined freedom as a dramatic leap. In practice, it was a series of small but irreversible acts: closing an account, reassigning a beneficiary, signing a new will. Each signature was a small exhale. That afternoon, as I left Anel's office, I stopped to look at my reflection in the bank's polished glass doors. The woman who looked back was 72 and weathered, but she was also composed, deliberate, and unmistakably present. There was a new alignment in her shoulders. She walked as if the world would no longer define her capacity to care by how much she was willing to lose. On the drive home I stopped by the travel agency and handed over a deposit. Switzerland, I told them, for at least a month. Long enough to see if I liked the quiet. Long enough to learn a new language. Long enough to sleep without the dread of an unanswered call. Rebecca had asked for one thing, my disappearance. I had granted it, but not as erasure. I'd given her my absence as consequence. And to myself, I had given the gift of re-entry. A life chosen on my terms. That night I placed the sealed envelope of documents in my safe and sat with a small cup of coffee. I could feel the machinery of change turning. Inexorable and precise. I felt neither glee nor malice. Only a profound, steady satisfaction. There are many kinds of endings. Some burn and leave ash. Others close like a door behind you, heavy, certain, and final. As I closed the lid of the safe, I knew which kind this would be. The disappearance, flights, letters, and a carefully staged goodbye. By Monday morning, the world had already begun to tilt in my favor, quietly. Invisibly, the papers were signed, the accounts were closed, the trust fund was set. What remained was the final act, the disappearance my daughter had asked for. I woke before sunrise, made coffee, and watched the city lights fade into dawn. The steam curled from my cup like a promise. For the first time in years, I felt no obligation pulling me toward anyone else's needs. Only my own pulse, slow, deliberate, alive. By mid-morning, I walked down to the corner post office with a small envelope in my hand. It was addressed to my lawyer, Annelle Adams. Inside, copies of the new will, the trust instructions, and a letter that began, "Execute upon confirmation of my departure." Not death, departure. At 72, people expect your endings to be tragic or pitiful. But mine was going to be neither. Mine was going to be organized, beautiful, even. When I returned home, I called the one person I trusted with the details, my neighbor. Elvira. For 5 years, she'd watched me drag grocery bags heavier than my body, cancel plans whenever Rebecca called, and patch my heart with polite smiles. She didn't ask questions when I said, "Come over, I need your help with something serious." Elvira arrived 20 minutes later with her hair still in curlers, a silk robe over her nightgown, and that mischievous glint in her eyes that had made her the best drama teacher in town. "What are we staging this time, Julietta?" she teased. I smiled faintly. "My disappearance." She blinked, then laughed softly, realizing I wasn't joking. "Well, sweetheart, if anyone deserves a grand exit, it's you." We spent the next 3 hours planning every detail like a theater production. Timing, props, dialogue. She'd be the one to discover my empty apartment 2 days after I left. She'd play the part of the worried friend calling Rebecca, "I haven't seen your mother." Her door was unlocked. I found a letter. And the letter, that was my masterpiece. That night, under the glow of my small desk lamp, I wrote it by hand. 23 pages, not a suicide note, but a mirror held up to 45 years of history. I wrote down every dollar, every sacrifice, every moment Rebecca had mistaken devotion for debt. My dearest Rebecca, you once said the best gift I could give you was to disappear. Consider this my birthday present to you. I didn't write in anger. I wrote like a teacher preparing a final lesson, one she knew the student wouldn't understand until the test came. I listed the totals: $460 in direct contributions, $600 in lost interest. Every gift, every bill, every compromise that had kept her world spinning while mine stood still. Then I added the second part, the facts of what was changing. The joint bank account has been closed. Your health insurance payments have been discontinued. The mortgage will now be subject to review under my co-signer rights. All financial benefits tied to my name have been legally terminated. I ended the letter simply. You wished for a life without me. Now you'll get it, but remember, freedom and independence come with bills of their own. May this lesson be worth its price. When I finished, I placed the letter inside a large manila envelope, sealed it, and labeled it in tidy block letters, "For Rebecca, do not open until found." At 2 a.m., my apartment was packed with silence and 2 suitcases. I had chosen only essentials, documents, clothes, a photo of my late husband, and the silk scarf I'd bought as a declaration of rebirth. I laid my keys on the kitchen counter beside a half-burned candle, a touch of symbolism Elvira insisted would make the scene look authentic. Every good play needs lighting, she'd said with a wink. Before sleeping, I called the travel agency. This is Julietta Johnson, I said. I'm confirming my flight to Zurich for Tuesday morning. The agent's cheerful voice filled the line. Everything is ready for your departure. Ma'am, we'll have a representative waiting for you at the airport. Tuesday came dressed in golden light. Elvira knocked at 5:30 a.m., holding 2 coffees. Ready for your curtain call? She asked. I nodded, handed her the spare keys, and smiled. Remember, Wednesday, not a day sooner. She winked. I was born for this. When the taxi arrived, I took one last look around my apartment. 15 years of memories compressed into a few objects. The couch where I'd cried after Rebecca's wedding. The little plant I'd nursed through every season. The clock that had ticked through too many lonely nights. I didn't feel sad. I felt finished. Airport, please, I told the driver. The city rolled by. Streets I had walked for decades. Hospitals where I'd worked double shifts. The park where I'd once pushed Rebecca's stroller. It all looked smaller now. As if it were receding into memory before my plane ever left the ground. At the airport, I checked in early. My hands didn't shake when I handed over my passport. The agent smiled. Visiting or relocating? Relocating, I said, starting over. 12 hours later, I landed in Zurich. Cold air, crisp and unpolluted, rushed through the airport doors as if welcoming me to a world that had never heard of my mistakes. A man from the agency held a small sign, Mrs. Johnson. He was young, polite, and spoke English with a Swiss accent smooth as snow. Welcome to Zurich, ma'am. Your apartment is ready. Would you like a window facing the lake or the garden? The lake, I said without hesitation. I've had enough of walls. That night, in my new apartment overlooking Lake Zurich, I poured a glass of wine and watched the city lights ripple across the water. For the first time in decades, my phone was silent, not ignored, not waiting, simply off. Back home, Elvira was playing her part. She would find the door unlocked, the letter on the table, the candle half melted. She would call Rebecca, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable. Rebecca would panic. She would search. She would cry. And for once, her tears wouldn't buy her anything. By the time Rebecca found the letter, I'd be thousands of miles away, not lost, not dead, just finally, alive. Some people call it revenge. I call it closure. That night, before going to bed, I whispered to my reflection in the glass. You wanted me gone, Rebecca, so I went, not to die, but to live. And somewhere across the ocean, my daughter would open that letter and realize what her wish had truly cost. The awakening, when my daughter realized what gone really meant. 2 days after my flight, the script began exactly as planned. It was Wednesday morning, ordinary for everyone except Rebecca. She woke to her phone ringing non-stop. It was Elvira, her voice shaky and desperate. Rebecca, I don't know how to tell you this. She said, I went to check on your mom. Her door was unlocked. The lights were off. There's a letter on the table, and she's gone. Rebecca laughed at first. A short, defensive laugh. Gone? You mean, she went for groceries or something? No, sweetheart, Elvira said softly. Her things are gone. Her closet's empty. Silence. Then Rebecca's voice cracked for the first time in years. What? What do you mean? Empty? By the time she drove across town, her hands were shaking so hard she almost missed the turn into my apartment complex. The door was exactly as Elvira described, unlocked, quiet, untouched. The air smelled faintly of vanilla candle wax and coffee. She stepped inside slowly, scanning the space she hadn't visited in months. Every corner felt foreign, like walking through someone else's life. And then she saw it, the envelope. For Rebecca, do not open until found. Her throat tightened. She sat on the couch and tore it open. Inside was my letter, 23 pages of arithmetic and truth. At first, her eyes skimmed the lines with irritation. By page 2, she was frowning. By page 5, she stopped breathing. Every dollar. Every sacrifice. Every note, date, and transaction she had long forgotten, I had remembered. Down to the cent. She read about the $150 down payment on her home. The $35 wedding. The $42 tuition. The $16 mortgage payments. She read about the prom dress she never said thank you for. The nights I worked double shifts. The jewelry I sold to pay for her hospital stay. Each figure was a mirror, showing her what she had cost me, not in money, but in years of a woman's life spent erasing herself for someone else's comfort. She tried to stand, but her knees buckled, the letter slipped from her hands, scattering pages across the floor like confetti at a funeral. And then she saw the last paragraph. You once told me you wanted me gone. Now you have that wish. I've taken nothing from you that wasn't already mine, except my presence. Her breath hitched. She turned to Elvira, who stood quietly by the door, tears in her eyes. Is she dead? Rebecca whispered. No, honey, Elvira said gently, she's free. Rebecca sank to the floor, her palms pressed against her temples as if she could squeeze the words out of her head. Free? She echoed. You mean, she left? Yes. Elvira nodded. Left for good. She said she was finally starting her life. Rebecca began to sob, not the polite tears of guilt, but the raw, ugly sobs of realization, the kind that come when you can't rewrite the moment you destroyed something precious. She can't just leave me, Rebecca said through tears. She can't just disappear. But she had. And for the first time in her life, Rebecca understood what gone truly meant. In the days that followed, the fallout spread quietly. Her bank calls went unanswered. The joint account was closed. The automatic payments for their mortgage stopped. The insurance statements arrived with cancellation notices. The safety net she had always assumed would catch her had vanished, replaced by silence. David grew restless. What the hell did you say to her, Rebecca? He snapped one evening, waving the mortgage bill in her face. You pushed too hard. Now she's left us with nothing. Rebecca stared at him, hollow-eyed, voice trembling. I just wanted space. I didn't mean for her to disappear. But words, once spoken, have consequences that don't come with refunds. At night, she began calling my number, first softly, then frantically. Every time, it went straight to voicemail. Hi, Mom, it's me. Can you call me back? I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean. Beep. Mom, please, just tell me you're safe. I'll do anything. I'll visit. I'll cook for you like I used to. Beep. Mom, I love you. I didn't know how to say it before, but I do. Please come home. Beep. But home was no longer a place she could reach. Meanwhile, across the ocean, I sat by my window in Zurich, watching the snow begin to fall. My phone lay beside me. Screen dark, volume off. I didn't need to hear the apologies to know they were coming. Guilt travels faster than mail. I sipped my wine and looked out at the lake. The water was still, perfectly still, as if the world had paused to acknowledge a quiet correction in its balance. Somewhere in America, my daughter was learning a lesson I had failed to teach her for decades, that love is not an entitlement. And kindness is not infinite. And me? I wasn't celebrating her suffering. I was simply witnessing the universe do its math. By Christmas, Rebecca had sent 12 letters to my old address. I told the postal service to forward them to a holding box I never planned to open. Forgiveness, I realized, didn't always require reconciliation. Sometimes it just required distance. On New Year's Eve, I walked down to the lake, wrapped in my silk scarf, the one I'd bought to mark the beginning of this life. I thought of Rebecca, her laughter as a child, Her first steps. Her eyes full of wonder before life taught her entitlement. I whispered into the winter air. I forgive you, Rebecca, but forgiveness doesn't mean return. A church bell rang in the distance. Fireworks began to bloom over the lake. Colors reflected across the black water like fragments of an old dream dissolving. And somewhere, far away, my daughter was looking at an empty chair at her table, the first holiday she'd ever spent without me, and realizing that absence can be louder than presence. That was my poetic justice. Not revenge, not punishment. Just truth, finally balanced. Resolution and legacy. The woman who chose peace over apology. The snow along Lake Zurich melted slower that spring. I took morning walks by the water. The air crisp and clean. The world moving at a rhythm I could finally keep up with. I had become a quiet woman again, but not the kind I used to be. Not the kind who filled silence with service, or guilt, or endless patience for people who mistook my love for obligation. This time, I was quiet because peace had nothing left to prove. My days began simply. Tea steeped in porcelain. A few pages from a book. Sunlight spilling across my small kitchen table. I found myself smiling at things that once went unnoticed. The sound of church bells from the hill. The smell of bread baking from the corner cafe. The way light danced on the lake like scattered silver. When people in the neighborhood asked where I was from, I'd say, New York, but my tone carried the weight of several lives. They always smiled politely, unaware that I was, in some small way, both dead and reborn. One morning, while organizing the bookshelf in my apartment, I found the folder that held the last copy of my letter, the one Rebecca had received months ago. My hands brushed over the paper. I didn't feel anger or sorrow, only a gentle gratitude. That letter hadn't destroyed my daughter. It had introduced her to truth. I'd heard from my lawyer that Rebecca had begun paying her own bills. Started a small accounting job. Even attended a financial literacy workshop. He said she cried through most of it. Tears are currency too. They buy humility. One lesson at a time. But I didn't want to watch her transformation. Some journeys deserve privacy. Some apologies are more powerful when never received. Instead, I turned my attention to building something new, something that didn't orbit guilt or history. I volunteered once a week at a local community center, teaching English to immigrant women rebuilding their lives from nothing. They reminded me of myself, women who had been told their worth expired with their usefulness. Who had spent decades giving until they forgot what it felt like to keep. We practiced small words that carried enormous meaning. Enough. Freedom. Tomorrow. I watched their eyes light up as they said the words aloud. As if naming a truth made it real. In those moments, I felt a quiet pride that had nothing to do with motherhood or family. It was the pride of purpose rediscovered. Sometimes, when I walked home through the cobblestone streets, I would pass the florist's window and see mothers buying bouquets, pink tulips, white roses, daffodils bright as laughter. Mother's Day, the signs said. For a long time, that phrase used to sting. But not anymore. Because I finally understood something I hadn't in 70 years. Being a mother wasn't about who needed me. It was about what my love had taught, even in absence. If Rebecca was learning to stand, then my love hadn't been wasted. It had simply graduated. One evening, I received a letter, forwarded from my lawyer's office. No return address. The handwriting was shaky, but I knew it instantly. Mom, it began. I don't expect you to read this, but I want you to know. I understand now. I know what it costs to build a life. I know what I took for granted. I'm not asking you to come back. I just hope you're happy somewhere. If you ever need me, I'll be here, this time for you. I read it twice, folded it neatly, and placed it in my drawer beside a photograph of her at age 6, missing front teeth. Smiling like the world still made sense. Then I whispered into the still air. That's all I ever wanted. Rebecca, Not your apology, your awakening. Outside, the evening bells began to ring. I opened my window, and the cool air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and freedom. It struck me then that peace is not the absence of pain. It's the quiet acceptance that some stories must end for others to begin. Mine was still being written. Not with grand gestures, but with small, deliberate choices. A class taught. A seed planted. A morning lived without regret. When I walked by the lake now, I didn't count years or losses. I counted moments of clarity, each one proof that I had turned survival into serenity. Sometimes I imagined Rebecca walking through her own mornings, coffee in hand. Maybe passing a mirror and seeing a little more of me than she wanted to admit. Maybe she looked softer now, slower to judge, quicker to understand. Maybe she'd learned that love isn't measured by how long someone stays, but by how deeply their absence teaches you to grow. If that was true, then our story had found its grace. On my 73rd birthday, I invited a few neighbors over for dinner. Elvira sent flowers with a note that simply read, "You pulled off the greatest encore I've ever seen." I laughed, a deep, genuine laugh that shook the years off my shoulders. After dinner, I walked alone to the balcony. Zurich shimmered below, lights reflecting off the water like stars that had finally learned to rest. I raised my glass to the sky and said softly, "Here's to women who stop waiting for permission to be free. Here's to mothers who choose peace over apology. Here's to endings that aren't bitter, just beautifully complete." And as the wind carried my words across the lake, I felt my heart settle into a rhythm I hadn't known since I was young, the rhythm of a woman who no longer needed to be understood to feel whole. Julietta Johnson had disappeared, yes. But in her place, a new woman had been born, not defined by duty, or loss, or even motherhood. Just by peace. Sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do isn't to forgive, or to fight, but simply to walk away, and never look back. What do you think? Would you have done the same if you were Julietta? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more family revenge stories that remind us. The quietest exits often leave the loudest echoes.